and a recording of this meeting will be made available as soon as possible after the meeting has concluded. We welcome the use of Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so the meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can members refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Please do not interrupt discussions until you have notified of your intention to speak and you have been invited to do so. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1. Welcome and apologies. Chris, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Chris too.
Right, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Rebecca, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Certainly, Chair. Councillor Ashley?
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Crick?
None that I'm aware of, thank you.
Councillor Evans?
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Jenkins?
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Fay Jones?
None that I'm aware of either.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Jones?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Councillor Killick?
None.
No. Don't believe Councillor Nelson. Yeah. Councillor Thomas, please.
No, nothing at all.
Thank you.
Is that all?
That's all, Chair.
Right. Item agenda 3, minutes. Members, could you please state if you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as agreed. Nobody's hand up? Okay, minutes agreed. Agenda item 4, action sheet. Rebecca, could you please run through the action sheet?
Thank you, Chair. So there are 3 items listed on the action sheet from previous meetings, 2 of which have been actioned, and the middle one there with regards to the update on figures from the Planning Committee. I'm in discussions with Gemma and I hope to get those to you by the next meeting.
Agenda item 5, Springboard and Innovation Ecosystem One-Stop Shop. I would like to welcome Dave Leach, Chief Officer, Communities, Customer Service and Digital. Well, he's not here, is he? I'd like to welcome Councillor Gordon, the Executive Member for Economy, Skills and Regeneration. Before we commence discussions, can I also thank, on behalf of the committee, Jean Church, MBE, and Ed Goodham, members of the Torvain Strategic Economic Forum, for their comments and contributions on this issue prior to today's meeting. I'll now hand over.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in quickly there? Dawson Evans is here. He was on your list there.
Sorry, Chair, as well as Chris here.
Welcome to Dawson Evans, Group Leader, Economy and Regeneration. I'll now hand over to Dave and Dawson to give a brief introduction to the report. Once they finish their introduction, right.
Sorry, Chair, if I can come in there. It's Dave Leach here. I'm in the chamber today because I'm based in Civic today. So I will let Dawson give the report, but just in case members didn't realise that I was here.
Okay, I'll hand over to Dave.
Councillor Gordon's going to introduce the report, Chair.
Yeah, I try to read it. Right. Invite Councillor Gordon to make introductory comments.
Thank you, Chair, and morning members, and thank you for your invite today. So as you know, we are looking to redesign our approach to the economic development through our new economy and skills strategy. Can I thank you once again for your views on the draft economy and skills strategy in previous sessions. Today's report focuses on 2 really important parts of that strategy. Firstly, we want to support businesses who innovate, export and ultimately create high-skilled jobs for our residents. We know innovative businesses grow most quickly when they are part of an ecosystem. By an ecosystem, I mean a business that has access to flexible and affordable space and other like-minded entrepreneurs to share ideas and collaborate with. These businesses will also have access to business support, advice and finance. Altogether, businesses then are part of a community. The report today focuses on Springboard as a potential centre for our innovation ecosystem. Secondly, our strategy wants to make it easier for businesses to interact with us as a council. Business inquiries are often the most complex to deal with. A new business may need planning permission, licensing, health inspectors, financial support, recruitment advice, and many more things. Our strategy to create a one-stop shop will make it easier to get that support all in one place. So I look forward to and I welcome your recommendations on the report. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now go to questions. First question. Most recently, I'll put my glasses on a minute. Here we go again. More recently, Springboard has also hosted hot desking shared space provision run by IndyCube. How much take-up has there been for this provision?
The take-up for, I'll take that question if you don't mind, Chair. The take-up for IndyCube has not been what was expected. There are issues around Springboard not being a town centre location, Springboard not being easily accessed by public transport, and the hot desking facilities haven't done what we wanted them to do, which is why, or one of the reasons why we're looking at the review of the overall package.
Councillor Thomas, your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just got a couple of observations to make a minute, if that's okay. 4.2.4 of the report states that a full review is proposed, working with the Oxford Innovation. This is misleading because it's not being proposed at all. The decision was signed off by the Chief Officer of Neighbourhood Services on the 10th of February at a cost of over £16,000. In 2013, the Labour-led Welsh Government scrapped 6 of the 10 Technium centres, and the Deputy Minister for Science, Innovation, Skills, Leslie Griffiths, said at the time that the parts of the network are simply not delivering or providing value for money.
Anybody like to come back on that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can pick up on those comments as because I do have some background information on that. Because at the time I was actually seconded to Welsh Government and working in the Technium network. So I actually worked on the review that the Minister is referring to there. There were parts of the Technium network that were not producing what they needed to produce. But at the time, the top performing Technium centre in that network was Cwmbran, was Springboard, right? So I take on board Councillor Thomas's points, and they are valid points. But what I'm saying to you is that Cwmbran, Springboard Innovation Centre, was at that time one of the top performing Techniums and was producing a lot of the outputs going forward. So to actually look at that outcome and that statement from the Minister doesn't really reflect the performance of Springboard in the past. So, you know, that's my answer. But I do understand why that issue has been raised.
Can I just come back there a minute, Chair?
Yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks. Well, given the Minister's comments in 2013, what performance measures were put in place to monitor whether the Innovation Centre was delivering value for money?
We were looking at number of clients coming in. We were looking at the number of jobs created. We were looking at the turnovers of the businesses coming through. We were looking at the increase in turnover of the businesses coming through. We were looking at intellectual property used, intellectual property developed. There was numerous indicators.
Okay, Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, well, it's just the fact remains that Welsh Government wasn't supporting it, was it?
The fact remains that and the fact is, I take on board the Technium network was disbanded and not supported, right? And that is a fact that we can't get away from. What I'm saying is that Springboard did perform very well within that network, and to be honest with you, one of the comments in the report is that we've lost a lot of our referrals because we've no longer part of that network. At the time, you know, Springboard was very successful because it was on the M4, 5 minutes from junction 26, and at the time we were Objective 1 status. So that did help Springboard with regards to Welsh Government inquiries. Obviously, the funding climate has changed, and that has contributed some of the issues that we're seeing now, which was really compounded by the COVID pandemic.
Councillor Gordon? Councillor Gordon, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that, you know, the competitive, innovative economy is, you know, half of our economy is a skills strategy, really. So we spend some time on our everyday economy and some on our competitive innovation economy. So there still is a need for an ecosystem, and Springboard is a good place to be promoting that ecosystem.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? No, I'll move on. Yeah, no. Second question, Councillor Killick.
Thanks, Chair. Before I ask the question, can I just suggest that we ask the questions in the methodical way that you took us through at our pre-meeting yesterday, and not ask questions on a scattergun approach? It would make, I think, a more sensible way of, you know, going through the meeting. So the question is, the diagram at 3.3.1 lists the partners. How involved have the partners been and continue to be in the development of the innovation ecosystem? And I'm particularly interested in being specific about how involved the business sector have been in the development of it, not just in how they use the place, but how they've been involved in the development of it, please.
The development of the ecosystem, Councillor Killick, or are you talking about the development of Springboard?
The development of the whole thing, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, we've liaised directly with the Torfaen Strategic Economic Forum. They've been instrumental in working with us on the economy and skills strategy, and they've been instrumental in working with us on the proposed innovation ecosystem. There is still work to be done. There's still collaboration to be done. This is the first stage in that collaboration. You know, this is early doors stuff that we are looking to develop. So there's more development work, and there's more, I don't want to use the word, there's more business community engagement to be done, is the answer to your question.
Yeah, can I just ask for specifics on that? I mean, how many people are involved, have been involved with you on it? I mean, are we into tens, or are we at 2 or 3? I mean, what I'm concerned about is how much they are assisting in taking a proactive stance on this.
Well, the Strategic Economic Forum covers a few businesses. We haven't gone out to the general business community as such, because the ecosystem doesn't really cover the full business community. If you look at the economy and skills strategy, there is a definite split between the foundation economy and the skills and innovation side of the economy. So we've been liaising the more skills, innovation type manufacturing businesses are part of the forum. I could give you the full membership, but I don't think I should in a public meeting. But that is something that could be provided to you after the meeting, no problem at all.
Okay, just as a particular then, is the business sector visibly and demonstrably interested in what's going on?
I would like to think so, and that's what the forum has fed back to us.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
I mean, it's very difficult to liaise with the whole business community, right? And I will accept that we do have people that we liaise with easier than others, and I do accept the fact that that should be spread wider, if that's where you're trying to push the question. Right? I accept that. Right? But we do our best to actually engage with it. But the business community is not a fracture. There are many facets to it. And the economy's ecosystem, or the innovation ecosystem, is aimed at a specific part of that. Right? So we have liaised with people that we feel are specific and are beneficial to that.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely. First one to hand up was Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask Dawson, what support is available to small businesses in the Innovation Centre, and do they get a private rent? And do they get private rented accommodation?
They don't get
private rented accommodation.
The support that they get is that we have reviews on a regular basis with the companies with regards to where the business is going and how it's growing. We help them to seek the support that is out there to actually facilitate that growth. So that's the support and stuff that they receive. They receive IT support whereby we are internet connected, etc. But those are the kind of things that we're looking at in the review, to be honest with you, Councillor Thomas, because our offering at the moment hasn't been reviewed since we opened in 2006, and that it's long overdue. So I think what you're saying to me is valid, and yes, they get rented accommodation as part of that innovation ecosystem, because I have been talking to people to form a potential partnership. Now, once again, I can't go into full details on that because I think I'd be unfair on the people that I'm discussing that with, but that is part of what we would like to achieve.
Thanks, Dawson. Thanks, Chair.
Right, Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's not a question. I've had a bit of an issue just crop up. I haven't got to leave just yet, and I'll put a message in the chat when I go. I'll be gone for about 20 minutes. I've got a number of questions that I want to ask. So it's just a bit of an apology that when I come back, I'll ask those questions, and there'll be an apology just in case it's covered while I'm missing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, apologies. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart Ashley, you got your hand up?
Yeah. In answer to what Dave Thomas asked there, I some time ago, before I became a councillor, before this centre was around, I wanted to set up a small business. I went to Newport and Gwent business at the time. It was obviously where you're situated. Is that still in existence? That or have you taken over all the functions of that? The old Newport and Gwent
Enterprise is still in existence, but it doesn't deliver the Welsh Government business support contracts like it used to.
Who does that now then?
But it's all done through Business Wales.
Yeah.
Right, and it's Business in Focus that are responsible for delivering that on our patch. But it is badged as Business Wales.
So you don't do that in this centre. We don't do that. So I was somewhat confused by this because at the end of the day we've got the ecosystem. I have been in this centre with a business before I became a councillor. I think I said this and I understand what you deliver. And this was a long time before I got involved with this, funnily enough. And I understand the kind of tailoring. So what I was interested in was where a small business would go to get that assistance. So there are more than one or two delivery agencies within this borough.
The answer to that is yes. And what we do is that we facilitate that by taking the legwork out for the companies. Yeah. So instead of giving companies a list of 23 phone numbers or whatever, we actually sit down, look at what the current issue is, and then go out and provide that and get that support for them. That's how we work.
Thank you, Dawson, because I must admit I wasn't clear about that. I thought I knew a lot of this, but it's an interesting mapping exercise.
It has changed significantly in the last few years.
Yeah. Chair, I'm the next question. Shall I go on?
No, a minute, please. Can we try and keep it, curtail it a bit, please? We've got a lot of questions to go.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
There's so far to go. Right, Councillor Ashley?
Yeah, okay. There's two bits to this question, and I'll say the first bit and stop and then go again. The current working model requires an occupancy level of 95% to break even. That's the sort of punchline on it. How many more occupancies would we need to achieve this? How was this figure set? 95% seems very high, doesn't allow for turnover. Broken down into could you break this down to approximate figures? What percentage of the building is used? And then the other bit of this is what percentage of the building is used by council services versus business sector? We noticed this in the report.
It's 58% occupied at the present moment in time. We would need, it all depends what size units are taken by the prospective new clients as to how many people we would need to come in, right? Because we operate on different size units. And if we got one person or three people in for 500 square foot, we give them 1,500 square foot. And if they took 220s, then we'd only have 600. So it's a very difficult question to say how many businesses we actually need to meet that 95%. Now, the 95% break-even figure is an evolution as such, because costs have gone up significantly. You've only got to look at energy. You've only got to, and other things, and that's why we are now looking at covering higher costs. One of the other things that had us was the change in the non-domestic rate situation, whereby if some of the offices are unoccupied for a certain period of time, then we have to cover the non-domestic rates, and that hasn't helped us either. And that's what's pushing this up towards 95%. Right? So it's rising costs has pushed it, because it wasn't 95% when the centre was first opened. The other thing I'd like to say on that is that when Springboard was first brought about by the council and started as a project, the estates function sat within economic development, and Springboard was never designed to make money, right? And it was going to be covered out of the money that was taken through the estates function. There was a decision made to take that away, and Springboard was left with economic development, and then it became standalone. So it's down to us now to cover its costs. So it's a very difficult. Business incubation normally runs around about 80% occupancy to break even. But it's not just a money function, and I think it's wrong to look at it as a money function, which we do, and I understand why we do. But you've got to look at economic benefits and the costs that we are paying out and what we bring in. Right, so I understand the question and I understand the reason for it, right? But the simple answer to it is it's not straightforward, right? Because we run different size units, but also take into account the economic benefits that building has brought to the borough since it's been open, and then you put the costs across that, and then that's what it's costing the council to bring this kind of stuff in.
How much use is made by the council? Because a lot of us have been to meetings there.
The council as a whole use it. The council doesn't like paying for it, if I'm honest about it. And we don't have as many meetings here as we used to. Now, when Springboard first opened, the council provided a lot of income to the building through meetings, and that has tailed off.
And is that charged for? Pardon me, Chair. I need to ask part of the question.
We are supposed to charge for it. It's a discussion we have with our audit function on a regular basis. But when certain people ask for certain things, they don't always get charged.
I'll leave it there, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Ashley.
Chair, can I just ask for a bit of clarification on that last answer? I don't understand it.
No, we got Councillor Nicholl Jones got his hand up first, so
Sorry.
you can come in next, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, Chair. Actually, it was a bit of clarification that I was actually looking for. Now, you mentioned in there that partly that costs have increased, and also that it's not actually designed to make money. And you are quite right that the monetary function of this is quite important. The question I would like to ask around this is that what is our budget line? What is it that the Torvine is actually billed for, that we actually have to make provisions for? I'm asking, what is the budget line within this? I mean, is this scheme, when we look at our annual budget, is the cost of this nil, in as much that it is designed to pay for itself? Or is there a significant budget line that's being put to this by ourselves as a borough, of which the amount that we take in revenue from it offsets that? I'm asking that question particularly, partly because I need to go for a little while, and partly because I'm really interested, because it has a much wider context in view of the 93,000 that we're likely to be missing in the budget, or the overall costs of it. I'm really looking for a much clearer idea of what this scheme actually physically costs us. If that, I hope, is clear enough, but if you could give us some details around that, please.
Right. Well, the scheme has cost us that 93,000 this year because of the reduced reduction in occupancy. The budget is set on an annual basis. The budget is set so that we break even or we make money. We have made money in the past and contributed to other things across the council, and it's done on an annual basis, Councillor Jones.
Okay, so the clarity on that is that in a good year, it costs us nothing and may actually provide something for us. However, that because of the business environment as it is at this moment in time, it's actually going to cost us some money. So really the nub of what we're looking at this moment is how long-term do we expect those losses to be, and as to whether this is and continues to be a sustainable business model, and whether we should consider supporting it or spending this 93,000 perhaps and potentially on an ongoing basis in a different way.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what the report is alluding to, and it's exactly why we're having the review.
Okay. Can I just go on to that, because I fail to see anywhere in this report the number of jobs that are being created in this centre, how many people, including the owners of the businesses, enjoy their income and their family lifestyles because this centre exists. Now, the other question that we need to look at is, if this centre wasn't there, could they actually exist in a different place? Because effectively they have costs, and those costs have to be paid as a business. Now, it's a question as to whether they go to this centre or whether they go somewhere else. I mean, are we looking at the situation that if a decision was made not to support this, are we suddenly going to see an awful lot of people who are then suddenly unemployed? Or would they, as is the suggestion, that a lot of these companies have gone to home working and other facilities, because otherwise they'd still be in that centre. They've obviously found a better business model for them, otherwise they would be still there. And I think this is the balance that we need to look at. I appreciate it's, the scheme in theory is a very good one, but somehow it doesn't seem to be working in practice for those people who either are using it or did use it and have chosen no longer to use it.
I think where you're going with that is a valid, and the comments you're making are valid. I think you can't underestimate what the pandemic has done with regards to this. How it's driven technology, how it's driven people's working habits. I think if you look at us as a whole, as a council, it mirrors why our working practices have changed. And that is part of what we're trying to establish with this baseline review and this piece of work to actually answer your questions more informally.
Okay.
Because I understand what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
And as I pointed out, we have made money in the past, right? But at the moment, we're not.
Okay.
So what have we got to do to turn that ship around? So what you've said is correct.
Yeah, and I think the important thing of what you just have said is that the pandemic, or not just the pandemic, but it has accelerated different ways of working. And we need to find perhaps potentially a better way to support the businesses that would need these types of services. And perhaps the business model is slightly different now. Can I just also kind of ask, is that I know Councillor Thomas earlier asked about us instructing this company to come in and have a look at it. I'd also like to know the cost of that to us. And secondly, I didn't hear the answer. Has it already a decision been made on that? And we are committed to actually engaging this company to do that review?
The review we've done would have cost £16,000.
Okay, so we're already committed to doing that.
And we are committed because we need to move this work forward pretty sharply, and it's been signed off.
Okay, that's okay. Now, is that inclusive within this 93,000, or is this on top of?
It's being covered from somewhere else, Councillor Jones.
Okay, so the net cost to this is actually more than 93 for this year.
Some of that 93 is being offset by Welsh Government grant as well. That's in the report.
Okay.
All right.
But apologies for this.
But the 16,000 is on top of the 93.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, apologies, Chair. I think I might have gone into some of the future questions just a little bit. Apologies. Yeah, thank you very much for my for my answers on that. I mean, I've got others, and I'll try and pick up that there. But apologies, I just need to nip out for 20 minutes. I'll be back afterwards. And thank you for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I can see the raised hands. Can I call Rebecca in first, please?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to come in quickly. I'm just conscious that there were a number of members at pre-agenda yesterday who've prepared questions, and time is sort of marching on. So I think it'd be best if we perhaps return to the list of questions. Thank you.
Yeah, they are getting waylaid a bit, aren't they? We got two hands up. John Killick was the first one.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to go back to the answer I think you gave to Stuart's question. When you seem to be suggesting that there were people who used the place for nothing. I mean, it seemed a somewhat oblique answer to the question, and I'd prefer a direct one because I'm interested in where there are invisible costs to the organisation or an invisible income, more to the point. So I'm interested in how real the 93,000, though. Again, in answer to Nick Jones's question just now, you said there was an additional 16,000 which is being paid for elsewhere, and I'm wondering where elsewhere is, because I just find it difficult to work out what this organisation's income is, what its outgoings are from things which haven't been clear thus far.
Hi, Chair. If I can come in there, it's Dave Legion is in the chamber, so I might be able to add some clarity to that. Just one point to bear in mind in terms of that 93,000. That is a pressure in year as a result of this, so it's not a rebasing of the budget long term going forward. That is largely a pressure in year. The 16,000 is coming, so the business support budgets basically are core budgets, and the 16,000 is coming from within those business support budgets. Now, there is expenditure lines within those budgets to allow for this type of investigation and feasibility work. So it is the type of thing that we would naturally expect those budgets to be able to contribute to if we needed to. And just in terms of the sort of invisible income or loss of income, Dawson's comments were largely relating to the meeting rooms. And whilst there is a chargeable amount set against those meeting rooms, it's certainly not at the sort of levels that we're talking about here to cover those budgets. When it comes to the actual rental of units, there is a standard methodology for actually working out the costs of those units. Now, there are occasions, the space with IndyQ, for example, being one, where there is a benefit to us to not charge that, so we can bring more tenants in, lone workers who would potentially then become a business to take a unit at normal rent. So there is a degree of complexity in this, which Dawson and the team are working through as part of this review to try and see whether we need to streamline some of that. So hopefully that adds a bit of clarity in answer to that question.
Can I just add to that?
That's really helpful, Chair. Thank you very much.
Can I just add to that, Chair, as well? I got confused with that question. There are no council departments renting offices within Springboard whatsoever. The meeting rooms do get used.
I wasn't saying that. I know they just hire meeting rooms.
Right. The Track and Trace project did rent a room for which they paid the full rent.
Okay, can we move on? Or Stuart, you got your hand up again? And we also got
Faye's got a hand up before me. I've got a point to make, which is quite an important point. Doesn't come up anywhere else.
Okay, Faye Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, we are making a loss and it sounds quite alarming, and I know we're all concerned about this, but we were also told earlier on the second question, I think it was, that there's a lot of benefit to the community, and I just wondered, are there ways that we can measure the benefits to the community and put them perhaps into a monetary value? You know, would you be changing your KPIs to do that sort of thing?
The outputs, when you're looking at creating jobs, when you're looking at creating businesses, it's very difficult to put a monetary value on it, Councillor Jones, because it all depends upon where that person lives, where that person spends their money, what and other benefits. So it's quite a difficult thing to do. What we can do is tell you the number of jobs that have been created. We can tell you the number of businesses that have been through here. We can tell you the number of businesses that stay within Torvine, and we can tell you the number of businesses that have stayed not in Torvine but more locally. We can give you that, but to monetise it is quite a difficult thing. And to be honest with you, I've seen ways of doing it, and I have my doubts as to the accuracy of doing it that way. So I'd rather give bare facts.
Okay, thanks. I just thought it might make it more palatable.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, and you know, and it's a great point. I'm just saying that to monetize these outputs is quite a difficult thing to do, and it all depends upon calculations and different equations, etc.
Chair.
Thank you.
My question's right. Dawson sort of raised it in a way. One of the success rates is getting a number of businesses through here, which is kind of churn. But then at the same time, if you don't get businesses in here, if you lost one and you got another one in, you actually not got occupancy. So you've got a bit of a dichotomy there, haven't you, Dawson?
Yeah, look, it's the way that it has to work. One of the things that that needs to be immediately addressed is what we call the pipeline.
Yeah.
That's actually creating a list of prospective people to come in here. That's one of the things that has not happened, and that's one of the things that our relationship through the Technium network, etc., with Welsh Government and the pandemic has hit quite severely. And at the moment, if I'm honest, I think we're having conversations with only 2 businesses at the moment to come in here. That's part of the things we need to change.
I like the word pipeline. I get that straight away. Yeah, but surely should have something been built in to cover that, not to use occupancy as a measure.
It's one of the things we look at, and it's something that we can report on. That's not a problem at all. I'd be quite happy to do that.
You're absolutely right there, Councillor Ashley, though, that there is definitely the dichotomy that you point out. Success, from an economic perspective, would mean that these businesses are growing to the extent that they don't need to be in Springboard anymore. So occupancy can be a bit of a misleading indicator long-term of the success of this building. So it's a really valid point.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Stuart. Faye, you still got your hand up. Do you want to come back in?
No, sorry, I should have taken it down. Sorry.
Right, okay. Yeah, right, okay. Will you move on to the next question? Councillor Killick?
Yeah, thanks. We've talked about the projected loss of 93,000 this year, and comment was made on the Welsh Government COVID Recovery Fund as a potential way of finding some money back from that. Question I want to ask is that given that other things in the borough, such as some years ago the leisure centres, have been turned into a separate organisation, has any consideration been given to this being dealt with in the same way, on the basis that it might have access to different areas of funding that it could tap into?
It's a good question. To be honest with you, there are options on the table for us to look at. It's not one that's actually written in my report. I agree with you there. It's a council decision whether it wants to do that. I could look at the possibilities and the feasibilities of it, and would be quite happy to do so. But to actually make that decision, that's not a decision for me to make. But it is a valid point and something that could be looked at.
Would you want to recommend considering it?
To be honest with you, Councillor Killick, if it came forward as a suggestion from the scrutiny committee, I'm more than happy to consider anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Killick. Moving on, question 5. Councillor Ashley.
Yeah. Okay. Oops. Just a minute. Officers are working to ascertain if this operating model is still fit for purpose, as trends in incubation offerings across the UK have changed. What trends are being seen elsewhere? We have some discussion on this, so I'm sure you have as well.
One of the big trends that is happening out there is a lot of this kind of stuff is being done in city centre, large town centres.
Yeah.
And that's a definite trend towards it. It's looking at the way buildings are presented, whereby our building looked fantastic when it opened in 2006, or 2005 completed, 2006 when it opened. It doesn't look so fantastic now, is an honest answer, and it's aimed at, a lot of the modern trends is aimed at individuals rather than businesses. So whereas we are, I mean, the strength of Springboard has always been the fact that we've been able to attract businesses that have already started into the area. And a lot of our business, very few of our businesses were based in Torvine before they came to Springboard. Right, so and there's also a trend, and it's still there. They wrapped around universities, they wrapped around other institutes that spin out business opportunities.
One of the trends as well that we're seeing, Councillor Ashley, in the broader sort of market beyond Springboard, is that centres who have relied heavily just on offering a space and a rented space are struggling. Centres which have been able to create a real sense of community amongst their businesses are actually seeing those businesses coming back because those businesses want to interact with each other. So it's not about the space. That's not really their purpose for occupying that building. So part of the rationale that Dawson and the team have put forward in terms of undertaking this review is to understand whether that more community-based model that we've seen very successfully elsewhere is something that can be replicated within Springboard. Now, quite simply at this stage, we don't know that until that review is done. We have a suspicion that it can be, but all of the factors that Dawson's pointed out around location, around the attractiveness to individuals rather than to companies, all need to be borne in mind once that review's been undertaken, which is exactly why that review has been designed in the way that it has.
I've got my hand up, Chair, very briefly. I was going to say, I remember Councillor Glencairn and myself being asked questions about small business units. I mean, I love this building, it's brilliant, but I do think we've always had a problem about small Monmouthshire type units in Torvine. We just haven't got many. Well, you haven't got many of them. You always ask questions about them. But a community of interest, like old farms, like old pub, that sort of farm type place, we just don't have a lot of that, do we? And certainly not in the place you guys want it. And individuals, people are working out of houses doing, in my ward, are doing things like catering firms and all that sort of thing. We just don't have a lot of it. But this could act as a hub for stuff. And I see the trends all over the place, because I know family members and people I know want to do this. We just haven't got a lot of it in this area. I can see you nodding on this one, and it's where you can create it and use this. No, I can see exactly where you're going with that one.
To be honest with you, Springboard's a bit more than a business unit.
Yeah.
There's a bit more to it.
Totally.
There's a lot more services wrapped around it. We don't just put somebody in an office and throw the key away and leave them to it. That's not what it's about. But to go on to your other bits, one of the other trends that comes out is that a lot of these new ones are being built around transport hubs.
Yeah.
So they're being built by train stations. They're being built by bus stations, and that's one of the new drivers for these kind of facilities as well. So the market has moved on a little bit. And it's how we capture that, and this is what we're trying to do now.
Yeah.
Anybody hands up? No. Okay, we'll move on then to Councillor Crick. Question 6.
Thank you, Chair. To some extent, this moves on from what you've just been saying, Dawson. When Springboard was part of the Technium network, the centre was at the forefront of the Welsh Government thinking. I'm looking at paragraph 422.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah. What is Welsh Government thinking and guidance support on this now and moving forward? And have you had discussions at Cardiff City Deal about this?
Oh, that's a fabulous question. I'm going to have a think about first.
Think aloud, please.
How am I going to phrase the answer to that, Councillor Crick? Fair play to you. The answer to it is that Welsh Government has moved away from providing these kind of facilities when it shut down the Technium network, right? So they have teams that go and look for inward investment opportunities for companies coming into Wales. They have naturally the first place for inquiries for people wanting to move into Wales. So that part of it, and working with Welsh Government. Welsh Government also have innovation network people that work with the universities as well. So tapping into that Welsh Government framework, that produced a lot of potential companies for us, right? And if I'm honest, we've got to rely on that, right? Now, those kind of things, once again, through the last 2 years, and it sounds like I'm using it as an excuse, but I'm not. But through the last 2 years, those kind of activities have dried up, right? And that's coincided with us experiencing this new way of working. So not only did we lose, or people reduce their space, we didn't have anybody on any inquiries coming in, which was Councillor Ashley's point about pipelines, right? And which is what I said, we're talking to 2 companies at the moment. So that's what's happened, and that's where the Welsh Government's role was in Springboard. And although we have a website and we have a social media presence, we weren't really marketing and promoting ourselves through it, right? Now, I don't know if you use LinkedIn now and other bits and pieces, but if you go onto LinkedIn, you will see adverts for space in Springboard now, which you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. So the team has started to look at how we promote ourselves, right? So we're conscious of that. the City Deal are looking at innovation as part of their stuff through businesses. If I'm honest about that, and I answer it honestly, which I always will, that work is not filtering down to officers like myself at the moment. I think that's being done at a more strategic level than an operational level at the moment, Councillor Crick. So it's very difficult for me to comment on that. I know they're looking at things, and I know that growing businesses and technology businesses, which is what we're into, is very much high on their agenda. How they approach that, at the moment they're talking challenge funds, and there are some challenge funds coming through, and we've worked with one or two of our tenants to actually tap into those challenge funds. But other than that, I'm not feeling anything other, because I think it's still at that strategic level. I don't know if Dave's got anything to add to that.
The only thing I'd come in to add on that, because I think City Deal in the grand scheme of things is still relatively new, although it won't feel like it. And there's been a lot of work within the City Deal, I think, to get some projects through the business planning process. And there's quite a few within the City Deal now that are teetering on the edge, some of which are looking at financial technologies. Now, obviously, with Springboard being focused around financial technologies, there may be opportunities there to link into that. But at this stage, we've got to wait for it to go through those business planning processes and understand what exactly the package is going to be. And I don't think it's clear at this stage exactly what that package is going to be and what Springboard's interaction is. But as soon as we're made aware of that, it's absolutely something that we'd look to tap into. It would be crazy not to, really, if there's opportunities there. So, yeah, we're certainly keeping an eye on what is going on within the City Deal. There are conversations that I know Dawson's been a part of with other people who are looking at putting bids into the City Deal longer term. We've just got to wait for those to work their way through the system now.
The reason I asked Dave to jump in, Councillor Crick, is because he does go to different meetings to me with regards to the City Deal, and he's aware of things that I'm not. So that's why I think
you've all got to be very alert to what's going on and jump in quickly.
That's a fair comment.
Thank you both. Faye, you got your hand up, Faye Jones?
Yeah, I might be completely on the wrong track with this, but we have joined up with the university. We now have a very exciting big new hospital which is bedding in, and there may be many technical jobs around the hospital. Do we have links into them? Would we have a hub there, physical or otherwise? And we've also got the community farm, which is on an agricultural basis. I know it's small, but could we link into startups with that as well?
If I come in first in terms of the links to the hospital, members will be aware that the Medipark, as it's been described, is certainly something that we're pursuing, and we still are and working through the business case process of that. There's been some hurdles for us along the way around securing the full finance to take that business case forward, but that's certainly something we're looking at. But as part of that Medipark project, Councillor Jones, you're absolutely right. We've developed really strong links with the universities now. One of those universities, Cardiff Met, have a research institute, essentially, that has been working with the team for a number of years. And I think, actually, it may have led to a company going into Springboard at one point. And I'm sure Dawson can correct me on that if that's wrong. So those linkages are there. What we need to get better at, in my view, is going beyond just the partnerships with research institutes within the university to tapping into the student network. And that's not easy, because for the reasons Dawson's described around transport connectivity, it's not always easy to attract students out of their campus and into somewhere like Cwmbran if it's not near to a railway station, if it's not near to a bus station, if it's not easy for them to be able to access. So I think, in summary, I would say we've got the links with the universities, they're ready to go. We just need to be able to now turn that into something that's more attractive to individual students when they come through. University of South Wales, for example, used to run a Bright Ideas programme, and there was strong interaction there in the past. But again, as focuses have changed a little bit, that interaction isn't as strong now as it could be. And one of the things that Dawson and the team I know are looking at is ways that we can rekindle those partnerships that we used to have with USW.
Thank you, that's exciting. Nothing about the agricultural bit though.
I'll pick that up. If you don't mind, I'll pick that one up. One of the things we want to look at, or one of the things through the work that we're taking forward, is how do we get our business startup services more into the community. Now, I have a feeling that the farm would be more suited to the foundation economy stuff that we do on the other side, rather than the innovation and technology side. But I also happen to know that there's quite a lot of innovation and technology development in the agricultural sector. Whether millions of pounds worth of that will take place in Torvine, I don't know. I have my doubts, but I'm prepared to be shot down in flames. But our foundation economy stuff, I think, would be more appropriate or more suited to the farm. But that's something that I would be more than happy to look at, Councillor Jones. To be honest with you, I think it's a fair comment.
Chair, can I come in if I may?
Hang on, Stu. No, I call you in. Is Faith, you finished, Faith?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you. That's great that there's, a few possible ways through there.
Okay, thank you, Faith. Right, Councillor Ashley.
I was a member of the Brecon Beacons Authority for in 2018. Steve Evans is not on here at the moment. I don't, but there's a lot of stuff just up the road there on that. But I'm also a member of the local action group with Nikki Williams, and I think the stuff that's coming out of that at the moment, resilient food, food networks, there's a lot that can be cross-pollinated into here, because you've got Monmouthshire, you've got Newport, we've got a lot of stuff. We've actually got the farmers market in the farm now. And we need to be able to get the food stuff coming into Cumbran and Pontypool, which we are doing. There's a lot of innovative small businesses in there that are looking for homes, and I just think that's something that needs a manufacturer, local stuff. There's a heck of a lot of stuff in there which we're not even tapping. We have only got one wholesaler for the whole of Wales, and the resilient stuff that's come out of pandemic. There's a lot of work in there. I think some of the stuff could come into Springboard. It's not even been looked at. It's not your fault. People want to do it, I think, and they need to know that they can do it. I don't know what your comments are on that, Dawson and Dave.
My comments are that if a business wants to come into Springboard, and it meets the criteria to come in, then in it comes.
I just think
whether it's agricultural, whatever, as long as it's got that research and development and that technology angle, then in it comes.
There is some innovative stuff doing with lamb and stuff like that on the top of bits of the borough, but it's not down in there. But we've got a lot of stuff bubbling under at the moment, which will come in a few years' time.
One of the team that works on that is Tracy Marsh, and she's actually part of our team. So there are bits, but at the moment nothing has come out that is suitable to go into Springboard. When it does, in it goes.
I won't dwell on this because this may be a focus for another question, but I do think it's important when we go back to the conversation around building a community here. That's a community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and we do need to be a bit careful around the entrance criteria with Springboard to make sure that we're still attracting in people who are going to cross-collaborate and work together. So if it's on the innovation and tech side, absolutely, and if we get applications, brilliant, but we just need to be mindful that we don't want to dilute or undermine what that community is trying to do.
Okay, Stuart. Right. If we can stick to the questions, and anything else come up after later on. Next question is: can you expand on what you mean by community, co-working, culture?
Right. Oh, that's great. That's a lovely question. Community are the people that use the building. Right. Culture is how they use the building. Right. And it's about generating an atmosphere where people are willing to talk, people are willing to exchange not particularly on ideas, because business ideas is how they make their money, but that many businesses have similar issues. And, you know, and within that community, somebody might have had the issue that you were facing 6 months ago and already have the solution. So it's about helping it. It's basically what you'd expect of a community that is a village, or is a part of Pontypool, or is a part of Cwmbran. It's exactly the same kind of things. It's just that it is business people sharing and, well, those kind of things. So that's what I mean by community, and that's what we mean by culture. And what was the other bit?
Can you expand what you mean by community and co-working culture? I think you answered both, didn't you?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. No hands up. The next question is Stuart Ashley again.
Why did we choose Oxford Innovation? It's a simple question.
We chose Oxford Innovation because they run 27 centres across the UK. They manage on behalf of local authorities, they manage on behalf of universities, and they are basically the leading people in business incubation in the UK. Previously, we would have gone to UKBI, United Kingdom Business Incubation Network. They don't exist anymore, and the number one in this thing is Oxford Innovation. They're also working with other local authorities in different parts of the country, looking at exactly what they're looking at for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Dawson. Next question is Councillor Crick.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at 4.2.4 again, Dawson. Oxford Innovation manage a network of innovation centres across the UK, as you've said, including towns of a similar size and demographic to Cwmbran. Do Oxford Innovation work in any other towns in Wales? Because you don't seem to have referred them at all. Let me just finish. As if they've only worked with English authorities, we've got different funding structures in Wales, and is that going to impact on it?
Right. Okay, they don't work in any other town or with anybody else in Wales at this present moment in time, but they have. And people within Oxford Innovation actually worked on the original feasibility study, or taking the feasibility study that was done by DTZ originally and making it into reality with Torfaen Council. People within Oxford Innovation actually worked on that when they were part of UKBI. So they're very au fait with the funding situation and the political situation as working in Wales as opposed to England. And they've also looked at centres in Scotland as well, which once again has that different way of working on a political level and funding level.
That's great. Thanks for letting us know.
Okay. Thank you, Veronica. Steve Evans, you'd like the next question, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. 4.24. On the local context, should we be looking further afield than just the South Wales innovation landscape on a bigger picture? So,
I think that's a fair question, and if that came through as a recommendation from the scrutiny committee, from yourselves, then I would be more than happy to accommodate that. I think that's a fair comment, Councillor Evans.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, good answer. I like that one. Right, building review. A programme of enhancements. What sort of enhancements, Dawson?
It basically bringing the building up to date. Looking at, as I said, if you look at modern innovation, although we consider this modern, it's nearly 20 years old now. Right? It's looking at how centres are operating now, how ours operate, and how we can use that, how we can alter the building to actually look at the new ways of working. It's not about knocking it down. It's about enhancing what we have. It could be as little as a coat of paint until we really look at it. I don't know. Looking at the new modern colours, if you go into some of these places now, they tend to be oranges, greens and purples, which give me an headache. But it's what people like now. I think the other thing we need to look at is that when we did the IT offering on this building, 1 gigabyte of IT access was cutting edge at the time. Well, it's nothing now. So it's looking at those kind of things, and you know, I think we know there's a finite amount of money, right? We're not expecting. I don't think we're going to be coming and asking for £500,000 to do X, Y, Z, because we know it's not there. But there are low-cost wins that we could do to actually make the building more attractive, and I think that's where we're looking.
Any hands up? No. Right. Next question is Councillor Crick.
Sorry, I hadn't turned the page. We will develop an outline 10-year profit and loss, drawing on a reviewed pricing structure, mix of products and services, and a full review of the centre's operating costs. Having quoted that, considering the recent events and such uncertain economic climates, should this plan be broken down into stages with maybe an interim 5-year rolling plan?
Agree, and it should be it should definitely be less than 5 years as well.
Yeah.
It needs to be reviewed on a regular basis, and I think that's a valid point. And I think it goes back to Councillor Jones's. I've just seen him nip back on where he was going with his questions earlier on. It's about, you know, yeah, there's 93,000 at the moment. It hasn't always lost 93,000. We need to, you know, a business will in many ways circle the wagons, look at what it's doing, look at what it needs to do, and then push forward and review on a regular basis. And that's what this is all about. And it's all about giving us that expertise to make sure that those things are what the council wants to do, what the council wants to achieve, and making sure that we take this forward without really damaging council finances even further.
Okay, Councillor?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Next question is Councillor Killick. You're muted, Councillor.
Sorry. Again, on 4.2.4, the section on development of a business case, what would we be looking at if the potential referred to isn't as positive as we would hope? What would be the options open to us?
The options open to us would be building disposal, realignment of the use of the building, management of the building by a third party, management possibly along your lines of what you were talking about, a community group spin out or a community interest company spin out. The options would be assessed at that time. And okay, as I said, alluded to earlier on, whereas I would be involved, it wouldn't be my decision. That would be people like yourselves would be the ultimate decision maker on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Right, next question is Councillor Crick.
Right, thank you. So what's the timeline for conducting the review, receiving the feedback and implementing any potential proposals, Lawson?
I was aiming for the end of March, Councillor Crick, but because of reporting and etc., that has slipped, and I'm hoping that I'll be in a position to have that kind of information by the end of April. But I'm saying I'm hoping, because it all depends how quickly we can move on this now. But it is speed. Although accuracy is the most important thing, there is an element of speed to this as well.
Okay, so it'll be ready for the new council, in fact, to consider.
That's the aim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next question on the innovation ecosystem is Councillor Killick.
Chair, I'll pass on this one because I think it's been answered effectively through a different question.
Thank you, Councillor. One-stop shop, Councillor Crick again.
The team to deliver the business engagement framework, the one-stop shop, has now been recruited. Can you tell us about the makeup of the team, please, Dawson?
Well, the team is a grade 9 team leader and a grade 5 coordinator, and that's to push the work forward initially and create all the things. How that team looks in future at this present moment in time, because I got a funny feeling that this one's going to be a bit of a snowball. As it gathers pace, it might gather a bit of weight. So it starts with that's the initial footprint, and obviously, once again, you know, I've said it on the budgets, but it's constant monitoring and constant review.
Okay, Councillor
So
Craig.
it's pretty small to start, and then you envisage it growing quite quickly.
Hopefully, it's not going to be one of these cost monsters. Right? So and I think that's what looking at, you know, that could be the issue. I understand that, and that's what I'm saying about constant monitoring and constant review.
Yeah.
If I can come in there as well, the initial phase of this with the team that we've got in is to look at designing this up properly. And when I say designing that up, I wouldn't envisage the one team doing all of the work around business engagements. There will still be a role, and a very important role, for council officers across the board who are currently engaging with business. This, for me, is about improving coordination, and some of the solutions to this may not be staffing. It may be digitally based. It may be improving some of the technology. It may be better customer relationship management systems. There's a whole suite of things that may come out of that help improve the efficiency of our communications with businesses. So we may need to, and we will need to review, and we'll keep under review the staffing structure. But if that hopefully gives some reassurance to members that this isn't necessarily just about growing this team to become a quasi-customer care function. That's not what this is about.
No, very much about co-working.
Yeah, and I think, you know, let's not lose sight of the people that we're trying to help with it as well, and that's our business community. You know, and be honest enough if things are not quite right, and sort things out, and that's part of the constant monitor and reviews process I was talking about.
Okay, Faye, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. My hand is up from a bit earlier when we were talking about the building, and I just wondered, because we said the transport links aren't great at the beginning, is this the right building, do we think?
That's an absolutely brilliant question, and that's part of what we're looking at now when we're looking at this review. I mean, when I describe what are the options if it's not quite right, well, but all those are part of the considerations, Councillor Jones.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ashley, you got your hand up?
Well, it's along the same lines, because I got a sneaking suspicion. I don't want to see more expense, but we do have buildings around the borough. The idea of spaces where people can use and advice, because I like the idea of the team, that's brilliant, but don't lose the real people and don't lose the experience that your people have got talking to real people, because Dawson knows this well, where I've done not-for-profit and stuff like that. Actual real experience and sort of face-to-face stuff, even if it's face-to-face digitally, is so valuable. It's not paperwork and the rest of it. For people that are starting out on this trip, That is the most valuable stuff. I think Veronica knows that we've been through various business things together, not-for-profits and stuff like that. So we have that experience of having experienced people around. It is really, really important if you're setting a business up. It doesn't matter whether it's not-for-profit or a business. It's actually having the people around to go for it. So actually knowing where to go and get it and get it, that whole thing is really, really important. So I whether you're a very, very small business, a medium-sized business, doesn't really matter. So I think what we're trying to do here is deliver this is very, very crucial. And the stuff that we've done with Dave on people in where we want to go with people, the young people coming in, the other scrutinies we've done rather points all this all up as well. So having a network, not necessarily just this building, we need more than just this. So I think what you're proposing here is right, but it needs other buildings and other places to go. I mean, the IndyCube model is probably other spaces are needed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is that this engagement framework, right? There's going to be lots of ways that we work with people, and different people require different ways, and it's getting that mix right. And I think that's what you're alluding to, Councillor Ashley, is it's getting that mix right about and it's about ownership, because you could come into the council on one level, get the answer that you want for a particular thing, but that could lead to another 2 or 3 questions, and those 2 or 3 questions can lead to people ringing us 2 or 3 times. But if you've got somebody who's there and there's a bit of ownership wrapped around that inquiry, right, and it's that little bit of it's that relationship building around that inquiry, that's what can make the difference.
Other thing I wanted to say, Chair, if you indulge me a bit on this, we don't need to get hung up on bricks and mortar either. We've got a fair amount of public buildings around the place where we can use them as hot desking, we can use them as consultancy, and I'm pretty certain the agreements being had, say, community councils, other public buildings, where we can get a better use of a public space where, you know, it makes sense, agreements with everybody. They are public spaces, they should be better used, you know what I mean?
To be honest with you, Councillor Ashley, it's something we are looking at.
I bet you are.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've got a lovely IT infrastructure already in place in town centre. It's called the library.
Yeah.
Right, so those kind of things will... Look, I'm not here to build 23 new offices with smoked glass. That's not what this is about. This is about making sure that our business community enjoys the service that it should.
And just one quick one again. What most of us carry a business kit around with us. It's called a mobile phone and a laptop. And these days, that's what most people use and what most people need.
Look, I totally agree with you. Can't disagree with that, because that's fact.
Presumably, as well as that, Dawson, you do signpost people to training for setting up small businesses and so on, so that they've got some basic ideas when it comes to how they control their money situation, financial situation and planning, etc. Because timelines are so important, and if they haven't got that basic training behind them.
It's all about making sure that people that contact us get what they want. Yeah. And it's about recording that, and it's about building pictures, and it's about being proactive, and it's about it's on so many levels, and it is social media, it is, you know, so they can get on their phones and their laptops, it is web presence so they get on their phones and their laptops, it is people, it is the phone, you know, it's a mixture of it all, and to be honest with you, it's what makes the concept very interesting, because there's a lot of things to be nailed down with that.
Thank you, Veronica. Steve Evans, do you want to take number 17? I notice him still here.
Yeah, fine. Being more proactive and dynamic in our relationship with businesses, allowing us to more effectively tailor and our partners support. How do we seek feedback from these businesses as a check that we are effectively tailoring in our support?
That's all part of the new engagement framework because, once again, let me be perfectly honest, I don't think we do at the moment. And that's why we need this framework in place to ensure that we do. We've got to evaluate the value that we try to add. Right? And that's part of the work we're looking at, Councillor Evans. And it's a fair point. Like I said, I'm not here to, I'm here to open up, and it's a fair point. And it's one of the things we're addressing through this engagement framework. Hopefully.
We've made a commitment as well, Councillor Evans, in the draft economy and skills strategy that the Economic Forum will review that strategy, our performance against that strategy on an annual basis. So if there are concerns that are being brought to the Forum's attention around engagement, I'm sure they'll feed that in as part of that annual review. So that will help keep us on track as well.
Yeah, can I come back in? So what have we got at present then to accommodate that?
At the moment, we've implemented the new customer relationship management program that we have. At the moment, that's only with economic development / business support, and that's part of the package that's going through. But as I said, when you look at the framework, one of the things that we've got to do is part of that framework will be an evaluation process through working with our businesses to see what they want, to see that what we've produced has been what they want. And as part of what Dave has just said, as part of the economy and skills review by the Strategic Economic Forum. But there's more work to be done on that. And to me, it's great that you're pointing that out because it's music to my ears.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Crick?
Yes, this relates to an email which members had a while ago, not that long ago, I'm just looking at it now, from someone who started their business off in Cwmbran and have moved about. They've tried the Innovation Centre several times, it's financial body, and expanded, but couldn't find somewhere suitable to relocate to. And they're just asking really about what to do when you outgrow the serviced office accommodation available locally. It's happening at Mamilad Park and in Caerphilly at the Welsh Ice. How are you trying to resolve that sort of problem?
Well, Welsh Ice is very difficult because it's located in Caerphilly, but if any business from Welsh Ice contacted us to help them find accommodation, we would do our best. With regards to Mamilad, I have quite a close working relationship with Johnsy's, and I know that they do refer things over to us, and if it's suitable, we refer things back to them. Perhaps the issue is we may not have had the quality accommodation they wanted without actually seeing what their requirements, etc. are. This is a difficult one to answer. They may not have wanted to pay the cost for the quality of the accommodation that they wanted. There's a lot of different things around that, but I'm sure that if that had got through to my team, and it has been dealt with by my team, who would have dealt with it, I would have done an absolutely super job on it. And without knowing who it is, I can't make any further comment, really.
Okay. I'm just trying to see if I can pull up some more about it without giving too much away.
Chair, if I could, I seem to remember that that the that what the person said was that they had been told that they weren't sufficiently IT oriented.
Well, you're on about actually going into Springboard, are you?
They were trying to, and they
There is an
were
entrance.
told they couldn't, but they then say something about needing fibre and a decent mobile phone reception.
Well, to be honest with you, if they don't hit the criteria for Springboard, then we can't take them in. There is a criteria for coming in. So if that was turned down because it didn't meet the criteria, I understand that. If it wasn't handed on to the rest of the economic development team, then we have failed our business. So I don't know what's happened there. You've caught me at a bit of a impasse that I can't give you an exact answer because I don't know the exact details, and we can't put those in this forum, can we?
Yeah, it's gone over a period of time, and they moved at one point to Monmouthshire, but have now moved back into our local area. I'll have a chat with you about it afterwards.
If you send me the email, forward me the email, then I will give you an answer to that. I can't deal with it any other way. I'm sorry.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, because we can do no more about it really in an open forum, I don't think.
Right, Dawson, how are the Springboard and the One Stop promoted?
Well, Springboard at the moment is promoted through the www.southwalesbusiness.co.uk website. It's promoted via social media, specifically LinkedIn. Other than that kind of activity, we are reactive to inquiries on Springboard, and as I alluded to earlier on, we got into the mindset that Welsh Government were providing us stuff, and that's dried up, and we need to address those issues. I'm not going to shy away from that. We do. So that, but with regards to the one-stop shop, the one-stop shop isn't promoted at the moment because it doesn't exist. And to be honest with you, there's a whole raft of work to be done. That economic development has always run its own website, separate to the corporate one. We need to review that. We need to see what we should be doing. We need to see what we think we would do. There's a whole lot of work on engagement to be done, and it is part of that framework.
Somebody's hand up, yeah. Nicholas Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to our presenters. What I was very, very encouraged to hear was the word proactive. I'd be very interested to see what what the team actually mean by that, and what that word means to them, and what their plans are to go from a reactive to a proactive system.
A lot of that proactivity will be around promotion because, I'll be honest with you, we're a small team and we need to, it's about promotion. It's about speaking to people. It's about being in contact with people. It's about following up inquiries. It's about seeing if inquiries are actually satisfied. It's about seeing, is there other services that we should be providing? So it's around that relationship building, Councillor Jones, and that's the difficulty for us at times, is that we are a small team, and I'm lucky enough I've been on the patch 19 and a half years now, right? So my network is quite substantial. I'm lucky that I got Gain Awakening works with me, and she's been on the patch possibly a bit longer, but definitely as long as I have. And her network is substantial. But it's about us using those networks, those contacts, to build our proactivity in. It is a difficult one for us. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight and it's easy. It's not. But because of we have a finite amount of resource. That's why this business engagement framework has to be spot on, and because our proactivity, if we have it, I mean, it's like I sign the glass that are coming to Ebervale. I met a gent who was looking at opportunities to supply them. I picked up the phone to 2 people on that and said, look, these opportunities, right? So that's proactive.
Yeah.
It's about spreading those kind of messages. It's about getting those kind of things out to as many people as we can. And that's where I'm coming from. And now, if you've got ideas on it, I'd love to hear them. I really would.
If I can come in very briefly there, just to add, it's about thinking creatively, which I know Dawson and the team do, and there may be a bit of modesty going on here, but programmes that are launched by Welsh Government around sort of innovative housing and around optimised retrofit, the team are always looking at opportunities for linking into those programmes that may be nothing to do with innovation on the surface, and seeing if we can find a way to use that as a hook to attract businesses in who are innovating in that world into Springboard. So there's been conversations that have gone on across those different programmes and will continue to go on programmes like that. So it is just a bit about thinking outside of the box about where the opportunity might be that would attract a business to think differently and innovate.
Yeah, to give you an example on the Operation Retrofit programme through Welsh Government, Gaynor and myself started talking to a company. We've actually put them in contact with a local RSL, and those two are working very closely together on developing a product that would suit their retrofit project. So there's all sorts of stuff goes on, and sometimes there's so much going on. Sometimes I just take it as my daily working load, and I know Gaynor does. But when you think about it, like Dave has said, those kind of things happen quite regularly, and it's about, rather than just Gaynor and myself being able to do that, it's about pushing it right across the team so that we become more effective.
Okay, I mean, thank you both for that. It's the sort of programme that I'd like the council to be engaged in far more widely. And it's very it's very comforting to hear that you're aware of this and you're reactive to it. Probably some of the honest feedback that from this review that we would like are the sort of things that you feel is holding you back in some of your ideas, some of the things as a council that we could do to sort of maybe enable yourselves and your team, on a much more effective basis. Because if we look at the problems that we have as a borough, the travel to work, the numbers of people who have to travel out of their borough to work, the lack of employment, to actually support the house building programme that we've got. This is so core to the to the health and well-being of this borough, and I don't think that either we don't have the resources or the manpower or the time or the business premises, but there's a whole host of things that we haven't got that would enable a vision of Torvine of the future and the kind of path that we need to be walking along, and we would be. I for myself, would be very interested in having some feedback, not just from us to you, asking, what's happening, but also to have an honest conversation as to, what you guys need and what the vision is for the future and how achievable this is and how do we better utilise the resources that we've got as a borough, both financially and property and, and from a workforce point of view. So, I would welcome that review, and please, if there can be some dialogue, sort of two-way, I would very much encourage it.
If I can come in on that one first, because there's a broader point there around the whole of the approach we're taking. I think we're taking a very different approach to economy and skills in the new draft strategy compared to what a lot of places are doing. And that's why we want to build in that review. So I was over the moon to see a recommendation last time from Scrutiny asking for us to bring the strategy back in for review after a period once it's been adopted, because that will give us that time to say, we've tried a new approach, is it working? And if not, what are the barriers to it? So that we can bring something more concrete into Scrutiny to say, these are where we're hitting stumbling blocks. This is where we're going really well. This is where we probably do have the resources and we need to improve. So that whole review process around the strategy, I'm really hoping that the committee will continue to want to review that strategy on a very regular basis to get that feedback through.
to add to that, I mean, I could give you the blasé, flippant answers to that, Councillor Jones, and you know that would be wrong. To be honest with you, I think one of the nicest things about this morning, and talking to you as a group this morning, and is that challenge that you bring, that questioning that you bring, those ideas that you bring, and it's about, I think, working together on those kind of things, and it is looking at these issues, and sometimes it's very difficult because I will look at the issues that affect my team, right, and sometimes other issues are not addressed, but I should have a role in that, and I'm sure that people feel it the other way around, and it is breaking down that kind of thing as well. So, you know, at the moment, you know, the team, the strategy is there. If I'm honest about it, I like it. I think it's what we should be doing. The resource has been allocated to delivering that. We'll always say we want more, but you know, the resource is there to deliver those things. And you know, that regular review process that Dave has said that you've agreed on, the skills strategy, what I'm doing will be part of all that stuff. So, you know, I think that's where we need to go with it. And I think sometimes, you know, things, it's like the email we talked about earlier on about a company. I'm hoping that when I get it, because I've just seen it, that I'm aware of it. But what I'm going to say is, if those things are around, you know, I'm easy to get hold of. You know, let me know, because if I don't know things, I can't put them right. Right? And that's, you know, so it's that kind of thing. And I've been here, like I said, I've been here a long time, and I'm more optimistic about pushing this strategy forward than I have been for a long time. I'll be honest with you. And like I said, you know, that's what I think. So that's what I'd like.
Okay, Councillor?
Yes, for me, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Right. I think I speak on behalf of the committee. I'd like to thank you for your honesty in answering all the questions. I'd like to thank Dave Dawson and Councillor Gordon Joe, and invite you to lead the meeting. And thank you very much.
Could I just say something on that, Chair? Thank you all for your contributions this morning, and thank you all for your questions. It was a great morning. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Right, members, can I refer you now to the scrutiny activity and key question and invite you to offer your recommendations. And Rebecca, will you formulate the recommendations for members?
Certainly, Chair. So if I can just draw members' attention to the scrutiny activity as listed in paragraph 8. The Prosperous ONS Committee is invited to review all the information provided and determine whether the current model for the delivery of the Springboard Innovation Centre is fit for purpose and provide any suggestions or areas for improvement that the committee would like to see in the options appraisal. The one-stop shop in its scope and model for delivery is the most appropriate way to provide business engagement. And then finally, to provide comments and recommendations for future delivery to the Executive Member for Economy and Skills. So members, would you like to offer any recommendations before I go through any notes that I made?
Speak freely and don't worry about putting your hands up.
Okay, I like just to follow up Veronica's question at the end or late on. My question to the answer she got was, can we afford to be picky about who we have using the premises if we've got such a lot of vacancies? And but I would rather have Veronica's when Veronica gets the answer to her question, which was promised, that may answer that. So it may not be necessary, but I have a feeling it might well be necessary to ask that question.
Could I come in there, John? So what you're saying really we need a breakdown of what their criteria is for these businesses.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the criteria is actually in the report as to
it is.
to accessing the springboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is, with the criteria, what can we use to make sure we're accommodating all the businesses rather than the selected businesses?
In which case, the question might be: should we expand the criteria?
I think the answer to this might well be something along the lines of that when the review is done, if it's found that this model no longer works, then the natural progression of that will be the review of, right, okay, this doesn't work, so now what should we do? And one of the recommendations might be to expand those that can use it. So I think this question will be naturally answered. Initially, if they've come up with with an idea and a strategy, it's got to be proven not to be working before it should be changed. And it may just be a temporary thing, and I think this is what we've got to look at. It might just be COVID, it might just be, or it might be something completely different and something much wider and much more sort of game-changing. And I think until we know the answer to that question, it would be wrong to necessarily sort of change the criteria at this stage. It's just a personal opinion, but I think that might come out in the review.
Yeah.
The point Nick makes is well made. I think this might be an issue, but I mean, I'm just thinking, how long is it going to take for a review to be made by some external organisation? And so the question I'm asking really, on this particular one, it seems, and I may be quite wrong, but it seems an obvious answer to me. Should we not be a bit more proactive, to use the word that we use later on, and just ask for this to happen as a matter of course?
Can I just say the answer to question 14, which was the specific answer question that Councillor Crick asked, and there is a review that will be completed, he hoped by the end of March, but more likely by the end of April. So we're going to have it very, very early on at the start of the next council. Now that's separate to the Oxford review.
Oh, okay. Right, sorry.
So they're actually doing an internal review, because the question was, what is the timeline for conducting the review, receiving the feedback and implementing potential proposals? So we're likely to get a short-term, quick answer to that question. And I think that it would be wrong of us maybe to recommend proposals until we've had that review, in the next early part of next council. But that's just a personal opinion if members think the same way.
Then can we make sure that question is considered during the review?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before I go, because I've got to leave now, question 10 is quite relevant to what we need to ask them about a future scope from working with outside the toll line.
I put down.
I think that is vitally important, to bring the businesses in. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question I wanted to ask was about pipeline. He talked about pipeline and people coming in, going out. That I thought was very crucial, because that building only works if they've got a pipeline, and they need to be able to get people in the pipeline. The discussion you've just had about the type of businesses, they're not attracting people in, so the pipeline is crucial to keeping that building.
Chair, another question would be one around the nature of the organisation of Springboard. Yeah. Should consideration be given to it becoming a different kind of organisation in order that it can be nimble enough to bring in external funding?
He welcomed you saying that question, didn't he, John?
Yeah, it's unusual.
Yes, I think it's important that question goes in, John.
Okay.
And there was also the recommendation at looking at just what sort of companies they have coming in terms of the startups, and whether you can perhaps put them in slightly different places but still under the same heading.
Can I just ask a bit? Oh, sorry, Stuart.
Sorry, go on, Nick, go.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, actually, I know, unfortunately, apologies, I did have to leave. This is the vagrancies of public transport. My wife had to get to work urgently, and public transport and taxis couldn't accommodate, so apologies for that. I did ask, or part of the question that I asked just before I went was around the employment that's actually generated by this scheme. I did ask, sort of how many people are directly employed by the companies that use this facility. I don't remember an answer to it, and I don't know whether, are we talking about some very niche companies, and this whole scheme only provides jobs for maybe, I don't know, 10 people, or are we looking at a situation where, in reality, that sort of between them and their spin-offs, that this actually provides employment for 200 people? What is the, are we looking at a scheme which is supporting very small numbers of employment at the moment, with the hope of developing bigger businesses? I didn't quite get what the hope and the ambition of this scheme is, and I don't know whether that came out in questioning, while I was away or not. So if people can help me with that, they'll be much appreciated.
Nick, that was the discussion about the pipeline. They had to have a throughput for it to work. What the throughput was, I didn't quite get.
Yeah, I'll pop
so you've got a good point there.
Rather than a recommendation, I'll pop that down as an action point, Councillor Jones, to try and get some further, more detailed information on that for you.
Yeah. So did they even mention how many people are employed through
Not
this?
in terms of specific numbers. No.
He
said we need to have an idea of that.
He did say there were figures that he could produce for that, but it's very much about SM, small, medium-sized companies rather than large ones.
I think what I'm trying to get at is the, from small acorns, mighty oaks grow.
Yeah.
Now, if the real drive of this is to try and get the nubs of really good ideas, people have got great ideas but just don't know how to put them into practice. If the whole purpose of this thing is to say, right, okay, let's have a look at it and let's see if we can scale it up, and this may lead to them moving from a small office space, as a business startup in some building in Cwmbran, to having a unit factory then afterwards, which will then perhaps employ 20, 30, 40, 50, 200 people, then this is a fantastic scheme. But I never got the sense of what the purpose of this is and what the ambition is for this. And I think that's maybe something that I wanted to draw out in questioning, but didn't unfortunately get an opportunity for. I think you guys, know what I'm sort of kind of driving at. You have to have innovation to be creative, and if we're going to grow the businesses of the future, which are going to provide the needs of our population within Torfaen, you've got to have this seed, this innovation, this fertile ground for them to be able to grow in. Stuart, you know that. How many small seeds have you got around your house that you put into your allotments afterwards?
Well,
it's exactly the same process, isn't it?
What I was driving at with a community of co-spaces, he used the word co-workers. Now, I know very much about that because I've run community spaces like it. What I don't get from this is using this as innovation space to put other spaces like this. There was some work done on Blaenavon and Abersuckham with spaces like this, but nothing done below. We've got a complete lack of similar space. This is posh space, but what we need is other space. And the question needs to be asked is, this has been done, but what other space has it driven similarly throughout the borough? Because the co-space, that question was asked, I thought it was a little bit trite, to be honest, the answer, because co-worker space, which Nick, I think you know about, is rather important. Because coming out of pandemic, we do need that kind of space accessible to actually innovate small businesses. And that was what I was trying to get at in that question.
But there is a great difference between spaces for small businesses, as in sort of one or two workers, to be able to do that business for that one or two people need, which is exactly right for the model that you're talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is that if this is going to be an innovative space for the major employers of the future to get a grounding and to be able to bring business ideas to market, then if that is the purpose of this particular space, then we need to ask those sort of questions and have that as an ambition for this particular type of space. The type of space that you're using or you're suggesting is absolutely right, because we need those sort of spaces for other different types of business activity. So it's about, right, okay, if we're going to have something within the borough that is the seed capital of the employers of the future, you know, the businesses that are going to drive employment on a bigger scale, and let's bring these entrepreneurs in, let's bring these business ideas in, and then teach them how to upscale it, bring it to market and make it successful, then there is a place for this, you know, within Torvine. But we have to have a clear idea of what it is that we're doing in these various spaces that are available to us, with the teams that we've got available, with the budgets that we've got available. And that was the point that I was trying to get at. Because this seems to me at the moment as being just an office space for relatively small companies to be able to work in. You know, as in, you know, we mentioned Johnsy's, they've got space offices like that, you know, in Mymilot Park, exactly for that. You know, and we don't want this necessarily to be a replication of that particular business model. And I didn't get from the answering on here of what the core concept and the actual purposes of this particular space and this particular stream of work. And I don't know.
I think you did make the point throughout the meeting that it's very much innovation focused, and that's why at the moment they do have that strict criteria on to which businesses can access that building.
Yeah, there's a very fair point actually, because if we're going to start putting recommendations in that they widen that, I think we need to have a look at that business model and make sure that it isn't a broken business model before we change it.
So it may be more appropriate for formal.
But I mean, we're having a general conversation, and I'm trying to formulate recommendations from this, you know, especially having missed sort of 15-minute section.
So perhaps from that discussion, you can quite recommend that once this review is conducted, that the options, the findings, and then the options for going forward are brought back before the committee for you then to discuss what the most appropriate option would be moving forward.
Okay.
Can I just ask,
go on.
Do we need to see what Rebecca has written down?
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, it isn't.
Yeah, but also, didn't they say that we didn't have good transport links to this particular place? Yeah. And that was really important, and that new places were going to town centres, new people who've done this innovative recently. So isn't that something that we need to ask them? Because he did say if this building wasn't right, that was the hub of it. So I think that's something we need to ask.
Dave Leach did bring us back to the economic development side of it as well. And I think the key to this is the economic development and the stuff we did on town centres as well. Because why are we doing this?
Okay, Chair, if I can come in quickly with just the few notes that I've made, and then you can discuss those further if you wish. So firstly, Councillor Killick has already rounded that up in the recommendation section with regards to considering options for moving to a similar operating model as the Leisure Trust. I mean, he welcomed that, Dawson, so that may feed into the actual review. They may not have thought about considering options such as that. There was also the issue of how we promote the Springboard and the one-stop shop services, and whether we need to put greater priority on promoting those services. Councillor Evans brought up the point again in the recommendation section, but just to refresh members, about looking in the review, looking further afield than just the South Wales innovation landscape. Again, Dawson welcomed that comment.
Yeah.
And then Councillor Crick, you made the point with regards to the financial plan and that being broken down into stages and 5-year maximum sort of review. On that.
Yeah, he welcomed that as well, actually.
Yes.
And maybe even a more regular. Maybe it's it's something that ought to, when we look at visioning, come up. Perhaps this committee once a year even.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously just tying up the other discussions that you've just had then more generally into, as I said, that being brought back to committee for you to review the options based on the findings from the review.
Okay.
I did mention the farm and agriculture as well as the biotech place, and they did seem quite interested in some of that, looking at it from the two different aspects of business, and that they were looking at innovative technology in some ways. I wonder, can there be a recommendation put in about that?
Yeah. Maybe it would be helpful if we're talking about the reutilisation of spaces within town centres, that we find a way of recommending that they look at using maybe empty shop spaces. You know, we've got some major employers that have moved out of Cumbrian Town Centre. We've got very little control over this, obviously, and this is the problem with Cumbrian Town Centre. You know, maybe we should look at Pontypool, you know, as a location. You know, we've got empty office space there that could be better utilised for something like this. You know, because the business links and transport links are better there. You know, that maybe that might be a good way, not only of regenerating you know, a community. You know, that's a major part of Torvine. It's also in the centre of Torvine, and it has the business and transport links that would be required to, you know, to use this, and that might be worth them a recommendation that they look at that as an option.
I think that might be a bit difficult. Sorry to come in there quickly, Councillor Jones, just because you didn't really discuss that. I wasn't the item.
No, I know this is the.
I put that in the comment section, but not as a specific recommendation for this particular scrutiny activity. Sorry.
Dawson did mention the libraries, and I think we have got. I did mention that, and I was having a conversation about spaces we could use, so that was in the conversation.
It was, Councillor Ashley, but with regards to this particular scrutiny activity, you're looking at the specific review for the springboard and the operation of the one-stop shop. So I think it's sort of going off track from discussions.
No. I would. Can I just say there would be scope for outreach from Springboard into spaces that Torvine owns. That would be a recommendation.
That might be a way of dealing it, because there are a number of those.
Put that in there. I got that, and Dawson wasn't averse to that either.
And I think too, whilst you're talking about the development of town centres and so on, we've got to remember that actually we're finite in terms of car parking spaces.
It's not all about car
parking. And that's going to create even more of a problem if we decide to stick them in the town centres. We really have to be very, very careful.
Because there's a finite number of
transport out to Lantarnham, because that is a big area now of employment anyway, and that needs to be ramped up.
With respect, Veronica, it's actually a 10-minute ride on a bus or a 10-minute ride on a bicycle, and we are encouraging active travel, because I can get out there when I was cycling in 10 minutes on a bicycle. So I mean that is always overlooked with getting out to that centre.
But there are problems with that centre in terms of car parking already.
Oh, it's terrible.
When we say that centre, where are we talking about?
The Tachium. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Jones was.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm expecting a call off a Mellon person, and I have to leave. Is that all right if I go now?
Yeah.
He said about 12. Thank you.
There's actually a bus stop outside of it. It's not very good, to be quite honest.
Are there any other specific recommendations with regard to the springboard or the one-stop shop? Or
Have you got some you've noted, please, Becca?
Yeah, I've gone through those already. Thanks for Ashley. Those are the 4 I've already gone through, and then I'll sum up the discussions that you had at the start of the recommendation. So unless you've got anything further to add, I'll type all those up.
No, I think we've covered it as much as I can see.
Yeah, well, I'll email those to you for you to review before they get sent to the exec member.
Yeah.
It's the need to be proactive that needs to be brought out.
Right, Councillor Killick, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what Nick was talking about, because whilst we didn't discuss it specifically, tangentially we were discussing it quite a lot. You know, in terms of the review, and I think, you know, in terms of the review, where it is cited is something we should be recommending that we put into that. we should be recommending that they put into that review. And I mean, there isn't any longer the issue there of car parking because the town hall car park, it has limited use now anyway, so there is quite a lot of car parking there. I think we just need to make sure that does form part of the review.
Sorry, Councillor, can you? So
Sorry.
you're saying about the services offered by the Springboard?
No, that alternative premises in town centres are given consideration within the review.
I think it's very important
conduct
they
the
are.
work that is currently being offered by the Springboard.
Yeah.
I think it's totally important, and they're in all town centres, and you can't take Cwmbran out of it because it's busy. It's ridiculous.
No, we're taking Cwmbran out of it. It's not owned by us.
Owned
matter. We've got buildings there.
Private business.
Yeah, we still have turbine businesses there, and if they have to, we'd find them. Because at the end of the day, Cwmbran is the biggest area in the borough. I'm sorry, I don't accept that argument.
No, but they're already very well provisioned, and there are a lot of other things that are going on.
Total rubbish. The biggest number of inquiries tend to come from Cwmbran.
Yes, but there's provision for those inquiries there.
It's not right. I'm sorry, I disagree intensely on that.
Well, just because you've got the most coming in, maybe that's because that the facilities are there. Yeah. Maybe the facilities that aren't going to...
We put up with this all the time in Cwmbran, and I do not accept the argument. Look, the town centre is private. We've got plenty of buildings around it.
Yes, I agree with you, Stuart, but you've got plenty of provision for this type of thing. What we're trying to suggest that maybe the reason that businesses aren't expanding in, say Pontypool and Blanavon is because these facilities for expansion aren't there. So if you put a hub in there, that maybe businesses would come forward and look at these areas. The reason why Cwmbran has got so many businesses in it, because it's been promoted so heavily. All I'm suggesting is that cake be spread around just a little to other parts of the borough. That's all I'm suggesting. Don't forget population.
Let's not argue about it.
We're not arguing about it.
They haven't tried it.
Hang on. Let's just put it on the list, please.
If we leave it as Councillor Jones and Councillor Killick express, look at alternative venues and not be specific in what you're saying, but just look at
Can I just say something without being argumentative, Nick? As a point of information, they actually tried other second and Pontywenith buildings up there. They actually had co-use buildings there. I believe they've had co-use buildings in Blanavon. The problem is we've got a lack of buildings of that type in Cwmbran, and that is why this centre was built. That's the history of this building.
But don't forget that was done under a different business model.
It was.
Now, if we're looking at a very proactive, let's bring some employment into the borough, that has to be equally spread about. And the only point that I was making is that those facilities are currently not available in the same way in the north of the borough that they are in the south of the borough. And that was the only point that I was making. I'm not saying that Cwmbran should be ignored, that they should have stuff taken away from them. I was suggesting that maybe there ought to be expansion into other parts of the borough where there are disused buildings that could be used and repurposed. That was the only suggestion that I was making.
If they can be reused and repurposed, but the other factor that has limited development up there, which a lot of the industrialists have brought up, is the transport links.
Yeah, you are totally
and we have a broken transport system in Torquay, which as a council we ought to intervene with and do something about. But that is a separate conversation. We need to have a conversation about transport, because if we're going to be serious about active travel, at the moment it's a joke, but that's not for this committee.
What I would say
is we're having a discussion that we're asking to be reviewed.
Yes, I agree. No, I totally agree. But the type of premises you've got in the north of the borough, we've got very few of them in the south of the borough.
So let's use them in the north. That's the only point I'm making.
No, you are totally right.
Thank you. We've got to where we need to be in the end.
Come on now, whoa. One at a time, stop arguing, let's play now.
We're not arguing, we've actually just agreed.
Okay, guys.
If I can come in for a minute, right? What I found amazing was that that email, Veronica, that you said.
Yes.
I don't think I've had that, because I just checked all my emails.
Yeah.
But you think it's somebody who's moving out of the